I'll just give myself a wee quick drink.
Mm-hmm.
Hydration is key. Righty-ho. So I'm incredibly pleased to introduce our guest for this evening. It is the fabulous Daniel Heinz. Is that how you say it? Yes, Heinz.
Heinz, yes.
Heinz, lovely. Like the ketchup. I know
Like
the ketchup.
ketchup.
So I'm good with that.
That one when I grew up.
So if anyone's not sure who you are, can you give us just a quick introduction to who Daniel Heinz is and what you're all about?
Yes, hello everyone. It is lovely meeting you digitally in this pandemic times. My name is Daniel Heinz. I live and work in Berlin. I'm an activist here engaged in migrant politics and also LGBT issues. And I work as a trainer in the field of civic education.
Fabulous. Yeah. So touching first then on your activism and your civic education, as you've mentioned, is there a particular group that you kind of work with and engage with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are two fields. Firstly, about the education and training. I'm working with young children from the age range of 12 to 18, which wouldn't be a child anymore, but a young teenager or young adult. And I've just recently professionalized myself as a trainer in the field of video games. So I do video game training with young students to sensitize them with gender issues or about gender issues, and to talk with them about topics like consent or LGBT identities, gender diversity, and so on. And I use very cool video games in order to show them how stuff like this could work.
That sounds amazing, yeah. And I think that's very much a kind of world away from what I had experienced when I was a young person. Was it the same for you as well?
Totally. In regards to the video games,
Mm-hmm.
I was totally into video games. I can remember very vividly that I always wanted to be like these cool female characters. I just loved them. Now thinking back to characters, it's actually pretty interesting because a lot of the games back in the days didn't have any kind of representation when it comes to LGBT character design. This changed actually very rapidly over the last years. You now have in huge games like The Witcher, for example, like this mainstream video games that have very high sellings, LGBT options in terms of love romances and so on. All of a sudden, if you click the right buttons, you can have a gay hookup, for example. So there's some movement within the developer world, but if we look more deeper in the topic, there's still a lot to do.
As with most things, I think there's still so much that we need to do. How do you find the young people that you work with? What's their response to using video games to explore those kind of discussions?
Mm-hmm. This is actually pretty cool because when I started doing workshops on video games, this just happened after the pandemic, because usually I would go to the school and make workshops with them. Before the pandemic, we did a lot of work about coming out processes and about racism and so on. But after the pandemic hit in, we had to change our concepts, and we were, okay, how can we meet actually in like a digital room? Mm-hmm. So we were using, for example, Minecraft, which is a video game that a lot of students like. And we could meet there all together. The students would need to download the game. However, this isn't a problem. We thought that young students would freak out about it, but in fact, it's pretty easy for them, even more easy than it's for us, probably because it's a different generation. And we would speak with TeamSpeak or other platforms and just talk about issues that they face, because in fact, every second household in Germany, for example, has a video game console. Mm-hmm. So speaking about a PlayStation or an Xbox, and even more so do have like smartphones, and smartphones are basically also full of video games. So it's very close to their relationship of everyday life. What we were more concerned about was the issue of like sexuality and gender, like
Yeah.
how they would take this as a topic of discussion, but we were also surprised there because I would usually do the workshop with a second teamer. So I'm talking about the we, and they were actually very sensitive towards these topics already. And I was surprised because the females, for example, or the people that would classify as female at the moment, they were very aware about the fact that female characters are usually over sexualized, and
Sure.
they were very, very aware of the fact that there's not a lot of body diversity when it comes to characters. You know, you would usually have like very ripped male characters and very slim female characters with proportions that are not realistic. And this is from the lived reality, and there is the opportunity for us to talk about these issues and to give them fun facts, for example, because nothing is for no reason. In the 19th, the game developers who would develop the most realistic breast jiggling effects would be the ones who were paid the most. So this is something super interesting that not a lot of people think about. Or something else, in the physical room, we have physical rules. If I drop my mobile phone, it falls. And in the digital room, it's super interesting. Till the 2000s, 2010s, only female characters would have jiggling effects when it comes to like skins or breasts
Oh.
mechanics, but male characters wouldn't. And this is something really interesting to think about that you can, talk about with young students also.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Now you're pointing it out. Yeah, all the games I played when I was younger, you wouldn't see any movement of, like, as you're saying about skin kind of movement on the male characters. It's only when you point these kind of things out, you go, oh wow, yeah, there is that. It's very new, a lot of these kind of changes. As well as working with lots of young people, you had also mentioned in a wee conversation that we had about working with Eastern European folks that are seeking asylum. Do you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about that and what that involves?
Sure. So my parents are actually from the Soviet Union, or what was used to be as the Soviet Union. We migrated from Kazakhstan to Germany. So I have the privilege to live in Germany and not in Russia or Ukraine or so, where my grandparents are from originally. And I am engaged in a organization here in Berlin, which is called Kvartiera, which is a Russian term for, like a quartier. Is it also
Mhm.
English? Like a living room.
Yeah.
And they're engaged in helping people from Eastern Europe, so from Poland, Bulgaria, Hungary, Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and so on, to get to Germany, because the situation over there for LGBT people is not very nice, to be polite in terms of classification. And this is where the problem kicks in, because sexuality or sexual harassment or harassment based on your chosen gender identity is within the European Union not a reason to apply for asylum. The Convention on Asylum was ratified during the 50s, the end of the 50s in the European Union. And back then, people didn't think about sexuality as a reason, or gender identity as a reason to leave the country. Therefore, most of the countries within Europe do not have a legislation that applies to, for example, transgender folk or gay people, because, it's nothing they thought about, actually. And it's really hard in Germany, for example. We have annually more than 200 cases alone from Eastern Europe about people who are gay, who are trans, who are non-binary, and so on and so forth, who would like to leave their home country because they cannot live there, because they have a realistic fear of being threatened and even losing their life. And what happens if they apply is that, for example, German administration says, we do not believe you that you're gay, or we do not believe you that you're non-binary, or that you're trans, or that you're bisexual or lesbian. You need to prove it to us. And that's where the problem kicks in, because how do you prove that you're actually trans? How do you prove that you're gay? And most of these people have lived or do live in the closet, which means that they do not look how a gay person is imagined in Germany.
Yeah.
And that's also a question, like, how do you imagine a gay person? It's
Yeah.
so, like, it doesn't make sense. And furthermore, because, and this is really annoying me, Germany is presenting itself as like this progressive country with a lot of freedom, the country which tries to fight homo and transphobia. But in the end, when it comes to LGBT folks outside of Germany, Germany is the same shitty
Yeah.
country with everything else.
Yeah, you can say that. Listen, if it's
Yeah.
if it's the truth, you can say it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of smirking there, not at the situation you were describing, but just the
Yeah.
thought of how do you prove you're bisexual? How do you prove that you're trans? It just seems so unusual that that's still happening in this day and age.
You know, this is really crazy because there were a lot of cases that were reported in Hamburg, which is a city in North Germany, for example. So this person, it's so crazy, and trigger warning, it's not nice. He had to watch gay porn while the police officers were watching if he was getting an erection or not. And methods like these were applied in 2016 in a case where someone applied for asylum in order to prove that he's really gay. And you can imagine such a humiliating situation, really not good.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that hopefully with the work that you are doing with young people in Germany and other organizations and companies like what you're doing, we'll hopefully see a shift in that at some point in our lifetimes. That would be really great. And talking about that, we have got a wee bit of a treat, and we're going to actually play one of the games that Daniel has recommended for us.
So this is the realistic kissing simulator. It's a little gimmick game programmed by Jimmy Andrews and Lauren Schmidt. It's an indie game, and we use the realistic kissing simulator in order to educate students and young children about consent. And it's a 2-player game, so it's monogamous, unfortunately, at the moment. Maybe in the future people could like join. So what's happening is we have to simultaneously press up and down in order to express our consent. So both people agree and shake hands, we can progress with the game. Someone has to invite the other person for a kiss by pressing both buttons down. So I'm asking you now, would you like to kiss me? And you have,
sorry.
To keep the buttons pressed, because every hesitation of or second thoughts would be considered in this game to not consensual. So it's a very strict definition of what's consensual and what's not. So now we agreed to perform kissing, and now we can.
I'm holding. Oh my gosh, do I? What I am consenting. I just can't make it move. Oh, there we go. Right, it's moving now. Okay. Oh wow, this is in real time. Okay, so now I see that you are with. Oh no, you're not. Okay, I thought you were withdrawing, so I was going to withdraw. It's actually quite tricky, isn't it? I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't make.
Kissing is not easy, right?
It's not easy. No, I didn't know you had to do so much with your tongue. And then what if you then wanted to kind of see? Oh, I've never been kissed like that, Daniel. Thank you. I'll return the favor. Where are we? Go. Whee! Come on. There we go. I'm getting your eyeball there. There you go. Lovely. So then I want to finish the kissing. I just stop
You just
touching,
stop and
and they retreat.
yeah. And this would be one of the games that we would play with the students in the school or digitally, remotely on the laptops to, yeah, have a fun way to communicate what consent is and how it works.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's something that even adults
Yeah.
can get an education with. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for your time and for your consent and letting me lick your eyeball earlier. Is there any websites or social media or anything that you'd like to promote so people can see what you're up to?
I have Instagram, and you will be updated there about my projects. I just got funding for a mini film project that I'm working on about Eastern European migrants in Germany. So I'm looking forward. My Instagram is Daniel underslash. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Heinz 28.
Fabulous. Yeah, and we'll share that down below as well. Thank you so much, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was mine.